Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Biz Coach Show. We are hanging out today, as always, with Eric T. Whitmore, founder and CEO of My Biz Coaches. And Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome, David. And yourself?
I'm doing equally awesome, maybe even slightly more awesome than you are. Not that it's a competition, but I'm just throwing it out there. But anyway, hey, if you are new to the show, we appreciate you checking out this episode, and we invite you to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And really, the show is geared toward business coaches or maybe professionals that serve small businesses that have thought about maybe expanding their service offerings or becoming a business coach. And today we are talking about something that every business coach faces at some point or another as they're coaching, and it can be a little bit frustrating. And so I want you to envision you're working with a client and you're providing, awesome recommendations, and you know exactly what they need to implement in their business to turn it around, but they're just not listening, or they're not implementing those recommendations. So, Eric, I know that you have lived this at least once or twice in your time as a business coach, and would love to get your thoughts and perspective on what to do in those situations so we can help other coaches that are maybe running into that for the first time or continue to run into that with their clients.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. I think you meant to say 1,000 or 2,000 times that I probably ran into this. But yeah, so as a business coach, one of the most challenging situations is when clients do not implement the strategies you recommend. So how can you respond how you respond can significantly impact their success and your professional relationship, which is another key component to consider. Here are some effective ways. We're going to talk about some effective ways to handle these situations constructively. So the first thing I recommend, you have to assess the situation, right? If generally speaking, not to get into a ton of the psychology behind this, but if somebody's not implementing a recommendation, there's likely an apprehension to it. There's a reason for it, right? In their head, there's a logical reason why they're not implementing it. Now it could be it's too hard. It could be that they don't agree with you, which is a possibility and something we have to uncover and identify. It could be that they believe that they have a better suggestion, right? I say don't agree with you. That could be one thing, but they don't have a better suggestion, or they think they have a better suggestion. In every scenario, in any of the scenarios, I should say, the truth of the matter is that at the end of the day, you have to get to the root cause of what the disconnect is, because regardless of how good you believe your recommendation may be, if they're not going to execute on it, everybody's going to lose, right? Even if you're right, it doesn't matter, because if they don't get results, then they're going to come back to you and be like, well, you didn't give me the right guidance. And you're going to argue that they didn't execute it. And that's just, it's he said, she said, it doesn't go anywhere. And anybody who's been in that conversation knows what I'm talking about. So there's a lot of things that go into setting this whole conversation up, which I think is really important. And quite honestly, probably don't have enough time on this particular video to go into that. But I would say that the most important component of this whole thing is how you establish the relationship from the beginning. And so it's probably important to identify that and how you establish recommendation, how you make the recommendation, and what that suggestion to them would be. So I say that we'll probably do another episode on that section just alone, David. So if you want to make a note of that, please. But that's a huge opportunity in and of itself is how you set the expectation. So getting into this point, you've got somebody who's, rooted in, I'm not going to execute on this. And they may not say the words, they're just not doing the actions. And really at the end of the day, we all know that you can have all the best ideas in the world without action on the suggestions, it won't go anywhere. So regardless who makes the suggestion. So that said, what we want to do is we want to ask them open-ended questions to understand the challenges. Is there something about this that you're not in agreement on? Is there something about this that you think we could be doing differently? I'm a little bit more direct than most, so I might just say, is there a specific reason why you don't want to do this? And then, one of the follow-ups to that often is, one of my favorite phrases is, how is that turning out for you? As a matter of fact, I recently just did a post on LinkedIn, and somebody, it was about pricing, but a client came back and said, hey, I've had somebody, we've paid half for this service before, half the price that was being proposed. And the feedback was, how's that working out for you? why are you asking me for more service if you've had somebody? So sometimes you have to challenge it, but that's not the point of this conversation here. So first of all, you want to have the conversation, identify what underlying concerns there may be. Sometimes these are things that are from previous experiences. Sometimes they are just crap that we're carrying, and it has nothing to do with you as a coach. It has nothing to do with your recommendation or your suggestion. It is literally everything about what the owner is going through in their own head. And sometimes you just need to uncover that and get that out there. So another piece would be to make sure that you reinforce the value of the implementation. Right? We discussed that by making this particular change, we would see sales increase by 20%. You would absolutely like to see a 20% increase in sales, correct? Yes. Okay. Is there a specific reason that you go back to, why would it be that we're not taking the execution? One of the experiences that I've had on a number of occasions would be the owner will say, well, I told them to do it, and the people that I'm expecting to execute aren't doing it. Then the question becomes, okay, well, did we identify with them how important this would be? More importantly, did you say, I very much would like to attain this 20% increase in sales? Here's how I believe we're going to do it, and I need you to execute it this way. And often what you find is that they didn't deliver it that way. They're not necessarily familiar with doing it like that. And they usually just say, do it, and don't give any answer, any logic as to why. And that's where a loss often occurs. Loss of communication, sorry. Another thing is to break it down to action steps. Sometimes it's I have a number of conversations where I have to help the business owner identify the best way to share what they want to do and actually give them a talk track to follow. I know I've spoke with a number of coaches over the years that I've been doing this, and they'll tell me the same thing. They find themselves engaging with their clients, and they have to give them a talk track to walk through, because many of them are not as experienced in the personnel development or having difficult conversations and things like that. So having somebody experienced walk somebody through that and help them have a talk track and a way to subjugate the retorts that are going to come back. This is why we didn't do it. We ran out of time. We didn't do this, and how to address all of that in advance is really important to help identify the best ways to resolve these problems. So you want to make sure you address the barriers and provide solutions. One of the ways that I found to help business owners, whether it's the owner that's stalling out or it's the employees that are stalling out, regardless, what you have to do is address in advance what might be impediments to moving forward, keeping the project from moving, keeping the employees from doing the new activities that you're asking them to do, whatever it might be, is to address with them when they say, this is why I didn't do it. You can respond with the solution of what it would take to do it. And I think that that's an important component. So for instance, if David told me that he can't get the production done in time and the shorts won't be ready in time, I would ask him, in advance, I would say, David, is there a reason we won't be able to get this done on time to have it set up to run by Tuesday morning? And he might say, well, I've got these other obligations. Okay, great. Is it possible for us to get it done before those obligations become a challenge? Yes, it is possible. Okay, so what would we need to do to make sure that happens? And then David would tell me, what do you need to do? And I say, okay, can we commit to doing that? Is that okay? Are you on board with that? He would say yes. Then at that point, I've subjugated any opportunity for him to come back and say, these things came up and this is why I wasn't able to do it. But you have to think in advance and challenge that in that way. Again, you're talking to a business owner who runs their own business. They're very comfortable in their own skin, and they're very familiar with who they are and what they do and why they're successful with their business to the point that they have been. So you have to be cognizant of the fact that they're, even with all of that, they're still going to deal with, or it's still going to struggle with some of these challenges, because it's not about their ability to be successful in these different areas. It's also, we're dealing with our own psychology, right? And so we have to kind of think through that and help them progress through those challenging conversations. So foster an environment of accountability and motivation. I think that one of the things that's important is, from the very beginning, as I mentioned earlier, having these conversations with your clients and helping them understand that there will be accountability. You're expecting them to follow through on this is really important. And then lastly, remind them that we'll come back and we'll evaluate this. So when the, you again, you're not telling them what to do, you're coming to an agreement on what will be the goal to achieve, and then what are the actions to get that done. So when you come back and you say, hey, have we taken these actions? And the answer is no, the conversation becomes, okay, well, is that goal still important to you? Because if it is, then why aren't we taking the actions to move towards that goal? What are the things that are holding us back? Why do we have these blocks? Whatever. If the goal is not that important, then okay, let's reevaluate, because if you're not willing to do the actions to achieve the goal, and you're telling me now that the goal is not that's not important, then we need to reevaluate what the goals are, right? So in all of this, it really comes down to how you deliver in the front end. And that will determine how you want to address these challenges on the back end when people aren't following through. So I think that's the last thing I would say with all of this is reinforcing the value of implementation, helping them understand, hey, look, these are the goals that we agreed you wanted to accomplish. They're not my goals, your goals. And this is the thing. These are the things we want to get done. And if it's going to get done, it's going to get done because through your leadership as the owner, regardless of who's responsible for executing it. It's still going to get done through your leadership. So if it's not getting done, then there's a gap in communication, there's a gap in understanding. So either way, we want to make sure we absolve that before we get too much further. And then, the first couple of times you check in, when they feel that sense of accountability, you'll either see them rise up to it or you see them cower back. And if they cower back, then you have to dig deeper, peel back the layers and help understand, what's the psychology, what's holding them back, and what's keeping them from taking the actions they honestly probably know they need to do, and they've just been avoiding. They probably knew that before you started engaging with them, quite honestly. But the truth of the matter is that sometimes people just need to walk through that, and they need somebody to guide them through that process.
Yeah, well, that's great advice, Eric. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, man, this is applicable to really anybody. I mean, this could be managers, leaders, parents, just anybody that you're giving advice to or asking them to do things or trying to help them in some journey in some way. So I think, certainly some universal insights with that, but specific to coaching, right? You are going to run into this. You might even run into it, a dozen times with the same client. And as you talk through that, sometimes they need to work through their own baggage, or, they don't want to admit that you're right and they were wrong, right? There's little things like that you have to navigate as a coach. And so I think just great perspective on that. And if you take the right approach, set expectations up front, and all things you talked about, you can really kind of mitigate that and see the change, right? Because it's frustrating as a coach if, they're not implementing things, they're not progressing. You're in this to help people get better, to help businesses get better. And if they're not doing that, then what are we doing, right? Why are we in this coaching relationship to begin with? So really well said. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I think that's it. I think, like I said, we could literally do a master class on this and probably break this really down a little bit more and talk about that, because the delivery is, in my opinion, the primary focus. Yeah. We could probably do a 10-15 minute segment just on that.
Yeah. Hey, future workshop idea, right? There you go.
Yeah. It's a great point. As a matter of fact, and ironically, as you said it in the very beginning, the truth of the matter is this is literally the step-by-step. And I didn't start this when I started the coaching, but I recognized after probably my first 6 months of coaching that I needed to pull this out of my bag of tricks. And this is back from being a sales manager.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's the same talk track, right? It's like, hey, these are the goals you had. This is what we wanted to accomplish.
Right.
We're not doing the things that we agreed that we want to do to achieve the goal. And I'm like, I didn't think I would have to do that with business owners, but we're all wired the same way.
Right. It's human nature. Yeah.
Exactly. It's human nature. And it's all comes down to psychology. And we just need to identify, to your point, what's the baggage? What's holding me back? What are the things that I'm struggling with? And let's move that obstacle out of the way, because that's likely the thing that's holding you back from scaling your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you found this information helpful, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future episodes with insights just like this. And if you're new to coaching, maybe thinking about coaching, thinking about scaling your coaching business, head over to mybizcoaches.co/coach, or make it really easy. Scan the QR code and you can set up a no cost obligation conversation with Eric or one of his coaches and just kind of learn more about MyBiz Coaches, how they help coaches, how they help people transition into the coaching space. And won't cost you anything, and it may change the trajectory of your career or your coaching business. So definitely encourage you to do that. And Eric, as always, appreciate your time and your insights, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Awesome. Thanks, David.